Hey everyone, I'm your Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. I hope everyone had a lovely Christmas period, and now we're in the in-between up to New Year's. In this video, I'll be facing one of Mechabellum's iconic players, Horrible Will, who is known for his asymmetrical placement playstyle, and also the fact that he loves to plick giants, so it's no surprise here that he does start with that giant specialist. As for myself, I go for a marksman specialist, but I'm mostly picked for steel balls and crawlers, which I think are really good openers if you want to play aggro. The setup you're going to see is something I did highlight in a prior video, which is the setup Cast likes to use. So it's a bit more mid-range, a bit further from the line, and that allows you to go for some nasty flank pulls and pulling away a whole bunch of enemy units and really try and open up the diagonal here towards the tower. I think this is still a very powerful opener, as I just said. And yeah, happy to play it. Now, the steel ball here, I'm going to try and place a little bit more inside. Reason for that is I was worried it would get pulled towards the middle because there is a building over there. But the opponent goes for fangs very, very far up front. So, well, I didn't know this, but this would have the effect of pulling anything forward anyway. He goes for a symmetrical defense here, picks up Void Eyes, and you can immediately see what I meant by asymmetric placement. He does have vertical badgers, but they're a little bit offset from the tower. Here it's to try and, I guess, be, a little bit outside of the wall and the building. And then the Void Eyes, kind of same thing here, are placed horizontal as well, but slightly staggered and slightly offset towards the right because there is, that DPS building on the left. As for myself, we have hounds, crawlers behind, steel balls kind of sparsed in between, and we should be able to win round one here because a whole bunch of my enemy's units are being pulled towards the left into the wall and the building. I often like to push on the opposite side of wall building because, well, it's just hard to push into. It gives a really solid base for the defender, and on the flip side, if your opponent positions symmetrically, they will have to run into your wall and your building, which, as you can see, do a great job of stalling. Managed to take care of 3 fire badgers, and now we just overwhelm that right side. We collapse, and we should be able to clean up the remainder of the board. I will speed up here ever so slightly, just so that we can get to round number 2. Now, the reason I picked this video is because I think it does show some very common themes when you're playing aggro. And yeah, I think it's informative. The things that will be happening this game, the kind of twists and turns, which are rather common once you get to a certain level and your opponents, start understanding how to defend and how to play aggro. Now, round number 2, we have unit reinforcements. Normally with this build of Hound Ball, you'd be looking to get some anti-air, either a Phoenix or a Wasp, even a Phantom sometimes. But here I get access to my Orange Man, which is going to provide me that AA for free somewhat. And I also have the option here of picking Mustang. I decided to pick Mustang because the rest doesn't seem that great to me. I could have gone for Rhino, but I do have to pay 50 resources for it, whereas the Mustang is free. And I mean, it would kind of be a one-round play, probably. That, or I would have to put it somewhere in the back to just preemptively cover a flank. But I'm happy to go for the Mustang. Covers me against, some air threats like Wasp, and it's cheap. Now, because I don't have to invest into anti-air here, I can go for the other thing that you should be doing when you're playing this, which is flesh out your chaff. So as you can see, we put a Fang to defend the left side a little bit more, against things like Phoenix attacks or flanks. And we also buy another late crawler and another Hound. Important when you're playing Hound is to really invest into them quite a bit. You want to grab range pretty early, often round 3, and if you have the money, sometimes even round 2. Another important thing that's going to be, something we need to pick up is that attack enhancement, as long as the opponent doesn't have the first defense enhancement, because it gives you that break point against enemy crawlers, and allowing you to one-shot them, even if just for one round, might give you the levels that the Hounds so desperately need. This round, not going too well. My opponent picked Stormcaller, powerful defensive tool here, at least in the early game. As soon as we start getting towards the mid stages, it shouldn't be as powerful anymore because we are pushing in with fast units. But for now, with oil and stuff like that available, it does do very well, and he immediately strikes back. That leads us to round number 3. We do have a Hound level available there. Round number 3 quick teleport shows up, and that's something I'm going to be happy to go for. The other cards, not that interesting. I've talked about amplifying core before. I think it's a bit too expensive, only if you have, you know, a giant that's high level, something like a fortress that can really use the stats well. Maybe it's worth picking up, but here it's just too early, and 200 resources on round 3 is a lot of money to spend. So I'd rather go for quick TP, and we go for that patented flank that I was talking about earlier. This is going to be really nasty because my opponent has a crawler there, has a fang on the outside, has a badger on this line here next to the tower. So all of that will get pulled. And if you're playing really far back, sometimes you'll even be able to pull some units in front of the tower. It is completely disgusting, and it really fully opens up the diagonal here, as you can use a mobile beacon to kind of path around the fangs and the badgers. Now, I don't have money for that right now. I go for hound levels. I go for that attack 1. It's not as important here because my opponent mostly has fangs, and hounds will one-shot, or yeah, hounds will one-shot fangs anyway, but it's good to pick up. I do go for a crawler too because I was in a bit of a precarious spot here, and if my opponent wants to missile, he can get good value out of it. So I thought, well, let's just add the crawler. It is going to die for, you know, almost nothing, but at least it does prevent a missile from killing half my team. Vulcan now comes out, as Horrible Will does make use of his giant spec, and he picked up that amplifying core. Another good unit, I guess, for that item. It is very expensive, but you can see that against low-level hounds, low-level steel balls, and a whole bunch of crawlers and Mustang, it does a pretty good job, and it pretty much annihilates my team as it sends me down to 3,000 hit points on round 3. So not too happy here about how things have gone. Round number 4, Missile Strike shows up, Portable Shield shows up, Mustang Production Line, another option for my opponent, and I'm thinking, ooh, I need to somehow get back into this game a little bit here. I've lost a lot of tempo. I've taken way too much damage. Let's click a Hail Mary tech, which is damage sharing. Not really a Hail Mary, but one of those techs where I expect it to do well for a turn or two, and then after that, I'll have to find a different threat. But buying me a turn or two here should be good enough. And so you will see me pick up that Portable Shield. You will see me click damage sharing. And that way, now my level 1 steel balls have 10,000 hit points apiece, and they're all sharing it. So we should be able to hopefully take down the Vulcan. We now go for this beacon around the fangs, around the badgers, and hopefully we'll be able to connect. My opponent goes for wasps, clever play, really good flank defense, and, well, tends to be annoying to deal with. I do keep my Mustang for the time being, because I didn't really see a reason to sell it. And I go for a Phantom Ray right behind the balls. These could have been a Phoenix as well, but Phantom Ray honestly is really good for these types of pushes, and the tankiness can sometimes get out of control if you manage to pick up a whole bunch of levels. I also go for some hounds here on the left. I haven't yet clicked range on my hounds. Normally, as I said, you would want that around round 3, but here I had to focus on some other stuff. But yeah, look at that, right? Steel balls immediately locking onto that Vulcan, taking it out, grabbing enough experience to level, and it seems like we should be able to get a victory here. The Fangs have thankfully been able to take out the opponent's Wasps, and my Mustang is doing the same. So despite, you know, perhaps the little air surprise, we were able to deal with it, and it is going to be that Link that comes out ahead. He does manage to kill my steel ball pack there at the very end, but at least I managed to strike back as we enter the mid-game without, you know, going too low on hit points. Round number 5, and we get a whole bunch of good cards yet again. Additional deployment slot is offered. Incendiary Bomb is offered. Really, really good for him, but he doesn't want to skip additional deployment, so he doesn't pick it, which, you know, works out for me, but I don't necessarily know that. And because I see the fire spell, and I really thought he would go for it, just to, you know, keep up the tempo and stabilize his defense, I was thinking to myself, well, I don't really want to click Sprinkler here, because I want to click range at some point, and that will just make all of my other techs more expensive, and, well, Hound is the chaff clear unit I'm currently relying on. So instead, what I do is attack the left side. And I was talking earlier about common themes on aggro, and this is one of them, right? If you see that your opponent has just used Sticky Oil Bomb, or if you expect them to pick a fire spell, or to even place Sticky Oil, you can try and go for an opposite side attack, especially if your opponent hasn't really invested much into it, right? And the good thing here is we have forced him to do something about the steel balls. We picked up the level and he has to buy a melting point, right? So you kind of know that your opponent is going to be using their limited deployments on the right side of the field, and that means the left side will remain as open as it was the round before. And that leaves it very vulnerable to this type of a steel ball play with the Mustang. Now we picked up that second portable shield, and we should be able to get in there eventually. The fire, of course, does land, and it means that all of my chaff, all of my hounds, and even my Mustangs will end up dying. But hopefully we can make a bit of a dent here and really limit the damage taken. Steel balls are going to do quite fine. They take out the Vulcan at the very least, and the left side does eventually manage to get in and grab that tower. Sadly, though, the right side struggling, as I lost all of my Mustang. I won't be able to clear the chaff that well. Hopefully he burns some of his own units by running through his own fire, but I don't think we'll be winning here. And honestly, that's quite fine. I don't need to win a round where my opponent went for, you know, a spell that costs 150 if I did not use those resources myself. But I do kind of want to limit the damage taken, and taking, you know, a couple hundred damage is going to be better than taking, you know, more than 1,000. Round number 2, or second rotation rather, of the unit reinforcements, and we have a whole bunch of very powerful units to pick from. Scorpion is offered to my opponent if he would like it. There is Sandworm for me, there is Overlord for me. I liked both options here. I thought in the immediacy, the Sandworms look kind of good. They're good against Vulcan and with Mechanical Division, or with Replicate. They can be very annoying to kill for melting points. But I have no damage right now. I mean, my DPS comes from 1 Phantom Ray, 1 Marksman, and, you know, a couple of Steel Balls, but the Steel Balls have Link. So they're likely going to die very, very rapidly in the next few rounds. Sorry. So I'm not going to be able to rely on my Steel Balls, and I need something else. Now, I did not think that Worm would be able to be a reliable carry in the long run. It almost never is. Whereas Overlord is a good, reliable carry, and it honestly has a very good matchup into all of the other 400 costed giants. It's good into Vulcan. It also has a good matchup into Melter for the most part, and that's what I decide to go for, because I already kind of have the front line that the Worm would give me. Now, opponent heavily invests on the left side, and here we go again with these themes of aggro. Once you've attacked the left side, you are probably expecting your opponent to use some resources to defend that left side. Now, you can either keep building there and say, well, you know, if I keep using all of my resources on the left, you're going to be a turn behind and I should be able to keep winning. You can also say, I didn't invest that much. I can just sell the steel ball, reuse the item on the Phantom Ray in this case, and fully commit to the right side. And now you have spent an entire turn worth of deployments to reinforce a side that I immediately abandon, right? And so you're kind of throwing your opponent, the defender, for a loop and trying to keep that advantage of having more material on one side of the board and getting those debuffs. In this case, we even managed to get a debuff, and the steel balls managed to kill my opponent's melting point. Now, what I will say is my opponent goes for range and multi-melter, which usually is a pretty good defense, and I kind of get why he's doing it, right? I have Phantom Rays, I have Hounds, maybe Wasps will come at some point. It makes sense to go for it, but steel balls with Link, honestly, they die much slower to multi-melter because of the reduced damage from each of the beams, and you would rather have normal melting point. On top of that, melting point doesn't have a great matchup into Overlord, but it has an especially bad matchup into Overlord if you go multi-melter, because now the range difference is a bit too big, and it's going to be really hard to lock on to these flying giants. So there's kind of something here where I feel like, ooh, I'm very happy with the decision I made. I briefly thought about going for that Sandworm, but then realized I have no long-term DPS here that, you know, can save me. So let's go for the Overlord. And now realizing, oh, the matchup just got really, really good. because my opponent went multi-melter, and range-wise, I am heavily favored. Now, round number 7, we get Smoke Bomb here offered. Opponent skips it, which I was very surprised about. I thought he would go for it, but just decides to skip, wants all the money available that he could have. And I'm just going to use the smoke here on the left side in the middle. I thought if he's going to be shielding, he's likely going to be shielding his strong side. So let's try and use this on the weak side. And again, right, prevent me from having to invest too much on that left side of the board. I want to keep my advantage pushing in on the right, and I am not going to go back over here. Not until maybe like very late game, right? Around 8, 9, something like that. If I have the money, but for now I'm going to keep focusing on that right side. I do go for range and overload immediately. These are mandatory text to click if you run this setup. If you have to pick one over the other, I would say typically range is a bit safer, unless you're really sure that overload won't get you, you know, messed up by anything. But if you can click both at the same time, all the better. And once you've clicked that, you're pretty much set in stone for the rest of the game. Eventually, at some point, you might want Mothership, but this kind of starts the whole ability to keep spamming overlords right from here on out. And it also starts to eventually be able to trickle down to that left side and start pressuring the left side of the board. Opponent here adds more Vulcans, goes for Incendiary Bomb on the Vulcans to set my board on fire, and adds another melting point there. Now, seeing this, I will likely want to go for something like Sprinkler. After all, I usually don't like it that much when you have range equipped already, but I kind of have to get rid of the fire if I can. Melting point this time around will kill my steel balls, and I make a bit of a mistake here by beaconing my Overlord as well. I think generally speaking, you should not be doing that, because your Overlord will just move into the range of the melter, whereas you would really want it to just stay safe. So with the fire here, things are not going too well. And while my Overlord is trying to do its very best, it will end up going down to that melting point. Oh, I say that. It actually does fight back and manages to one-shot it because I did pick up the level. And so it's not too bad of a round. Again, mostly the fire there affecting our board state, and a bit of a bad beacon, in my opinion, on my end. But now we have round number 8. And here comes the nuke. Now, I kind of expected him to pick that because, well, all of my units are on the right side of the board, and the important ones are flying, so I won't be able to defend them at all. I didn't want to go for nuke because he was going to shield, and if he shields far back enough, I don't think I'm going to be able to kill his units or even break the shields. So instead, I'm going to play for econ. And it's risky to do, but I just genuinely think that the nuke is better here for him than for me, so there's not much to be done. And, well, that's why I decided to just kind of abandon ship. On the right side, I decided to sell one of my Overlords that would have been difficult to beacon, and the other one I beacon all the way over to here, because I expected him to nuke somewhere on the right. Now, he does nuke a little bit more in the middle, but I still think that looking at this, I should be completely fine. Temp speed has been clicked, obviously very important, and because we already teched the Overlords twice, even 3 times now with the sell of that other Overlord, I should be able to get in on that left side. I luckily do have a bit of a backup, right, of units here. I already had the Hounds, which should provide the chaff clear, and then with the help of the Overlords, I think I should be fine. Left side doesn't look that scary, and I still have that smoke to play around as well. My opponent even decides to sell out of the melter here, and potentially fully commit on that right side. Buys more chaff, maybe pumps a level into that tower. Doesn't do so. A little bit risky here. I think that generally speaking, you should be expecting me to move. It's another one of those common things for aggro, right? Big spell shows up that you're not going to be able to dodge. Then try and abandon, you know, ship and go to the other side of the board. And it's also nice to have a little bit of an army over there already. If only it is, you know, 1 or 2 chaff packs and maybe 1 or 2 chaff clear units. And then you can just buy whatever carry you have around those. And so on the right side, well, I do lose most of my army, but I managed to move, you know, all of my boats out of harm's way. And now we still have that second Mothership activation to really try and hurt those enemy melting points. Of course, multi-melter is a bit less vulnerable to it, but still it provides an adequate amount of, you know, units in front of the melter to distract. And we should be just fine. So we managed to win the round where our opponent went for nuke and we didn't. Very, very good result. I mean, that tells you something, right? If your opponent loses on a round they paid 400 for a big spell and you didn't, so that just bodes really well. You're going to be ahead in econ and your army is apparently much stronger than theirs. Round number 9, we get unit reinforcements here. I'm not looking for anything specific. Although I could pick up the Typhoons, it is triple Typhoon, which is very nice. It pairs nicely with Overlords, so you can just use them as your front line, maybe pick up that Typhoon barrier. That is what we are going to do. I think alternatively, you could just take the Farseer and sell as well if you really want to just spam Overlords everywhere. But, you know, this still leaves us money to do that either way, as I pick up another Overlord, and I now have 3 of these Typhoons to, well, block missiles, block a little bit of the fire from landing too far back, and just generally protect the rest of my units, like my hounds, so they can survive and get rid of that enemy fire. He decides to go for triple Scorpion here, which does end up being pretty decent into my Typhoons, but he doesn't have double shot clicked just yet, and it looks like he's mostly going to be stacking them on the left side. Picks up a few more Mustangs, or not Mustangs, Wasps rather, although goes back on it. Wasps could be scary here for me for sure if he goes range and AA. Decides not to do that, I think. Oh, no, never mind. There we are. We do get Wasp range and AA. Pretty expensive, though. Means that he won't be able to invest into anything else. Does range of the Scorpions. We have level 2 melting points on the right, but that's about it. And, I mean, whilst Wasps are good, in theory, against Overlords, they do kind of need levels to contest. And so these level 2 Overlords, or well, this one particularly, might be a bit of a menace. I also do happen to have a few Mustangs, and of course I added the Typhoons. So it's not guaranteed here that it's going to work out that well for him. Still, I'm going to say those steel balls are doing really well. Considering I linked them that early on, the fact that they're still taking out, you know, a Vulcan in round number 9 is admirable for sure. Pretty happy with that tech. I've been running it lately and it's been doing pretty well. Overlord's here just doing Overlord stuff, locking onto the enemy melting points. Again, the range difference because of multi-melter just so big. And even though the Wasps were locked onto my Overlord on the left, you can see the problems already, right? Level 1 Wasp just doesn't have the highest amount of DPS, and it's not enough here to clean the board. So he managed to win. I was relatively happy about how I played this game. I think early on, right, we ran into a bit of trouble with the early Vulcan, killing our entire board. We took a whole bunch of damage. We realized, okay, we need to stabilize early here. Don't really care about the long-term scaling. And so we link our steel balls to get back into the game. And then we try and find a long-term answer, which was going to be the Overlords. Important here not to take the Sandworm, even though it looked good. And I think it would have done well for a turn or two. Long term, it wouldn't have been able to be a really good DPS carry, whereas Overlord did have, you know, a good long-term viability. And yeah, play around the spells. So, you know, when we expect the fire, we go for a little attack on the left side. We then expect the opponent to, you know, commit units on the left side to try and defend. And that's where we sell out. We double commit again on the right side. And then, of course, there was the beacon play to try and evade the nuke, which worked out really, really well. Now, what should my opponent have done? I'm not too sure if late game here there was a lot to be done, but I do want to go back to maybe round 6, where I believe he went for multi-melter, which is not what I would have done. I would not have gone multi-melter here this early. It's not very good into Link Ball, or at least it's unnecessary. It's alright into Hound and into Phantom, but I only have a few Hounds and only have one Phantom. So I'd much rather just try and range the melting point here than do something else. So let's take over and see if we can somehow win this. I would likely pick the Scorpion here. My opponent went for Arclight. I don't think you need to use the Arclights. It's a lot of deployments, but he also has a ton of Chaff Clear units kind of ready to be invested in anyway. So let's just grab that Scorpion and use that on the right side here to, you know, defend a potential attack. And then if this vanishes, you can always sell the Scorpion and retrieve the item and, you know, use the resources on the left. And this way you can just use maybe range and napalm on the Badgers. Try and add another one and maybe just add some more chaff. I do think it would be good to range this melting point. I really do. So let's try and maybe add some fangs over here. And then maybe some more fangs a bit late over here to try and defend that melting point if we can. I don't think we need to overcommit on that right side. Adding the badger here is fine, but let's see. How does that play out? Some missiles could have been nice as well, but I don't want to loan this early on round number 6. Melting point will lock on here to the first steel ball pack. Take that out relatively quickly. Now it has to lock on to the other one. And we'll have to see how well the badgers do. Melting point in a little bit of trouble here, but it does manage to lock onto the important units. And there goes the tower. Wasps are doing a nice job. Only one Overlord left, but it's a lot closer already. I think we might end up winning this with the help of the fangs. We do. And that is a better result than the loss, of course, that happened in this particular round. Which, if we go back to watch the replay, I ended up winning and dealing, you know, a few hundred damage, or even more than that. Opponent was at 3.6 at the start of the round and ended up with 2,000. So I actually did over 1.5k, which is a big, big win for me. And he could have actually dealt damage to me instead, which at 2,000 hit points, you know, I'm getting close to 1,000 at that point, which is within one-shot kill territory. So yeah, I think in general, he should have just not gone for multi-melter this early. If you see the Overlord show up in the unit drop, it's a pretty common pickup, I would say, for aggro. Just a very good aggro giant. And yeah, you don't make your life that much easier if you go for multi-melter when they're this far back. If you're on the line, it's a different story, right? If you're on the line in a headbutt, multi-melter is S tier, and you know, you'll be able to maybe get away with it. But if they're that far back, I think you're going to be struggling. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, and whether or not you had a fantastic Christmas. I sure hope you did. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.